time to hammer.
Oh, I gotta really try hard.
Shut it down!
Somehow it's the best.
After the credits.
A Yum Chunks podcast.
Yum Chunks!
Welcome, everybody listening to episode 30 of After the Credits, a Yum Chunks podcast. I am Matt Chewy, and with us today we have Ryan Davis.
Hey!
Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Going great.
Sean Davis.
What's up? I'm here.
He is here. And Vince Rizzo. How you doing?
I exist today.
You exist. Now, Vince, let me ask you. I don't feel like I got enough out of my free Make Fun of Vince pass from the last episode. Have you seen tonight's movie?
Guess what, guys? I actually saw it. I
What?
went and I saw this movie. Paige was there. She can vouch for me that I did, in fact, witness this feature film.
Paige can vouch for you? Well, she is your wife. I mean, she's kind of one of her jobs, whether you saw it or not, right?
No,
she kind of
it's
has to
not.
vouch for you.
Trust
Oh.
me. It's not her job, and she does not try to make it her job.
Well, I don't know if you threw it in there, but what is that movie tonight that we are talking about that you did actually see?
We're gonna see. No, I saw it. Okay, so what we're gonna talk about. What we're gonna talk about tonight is Us. The
Oh,
movie
right.
Us.
We're talking about Us, and what tell us a little bit more about that movie. What is it?
All right. Well, this is a story all about how someone's
All right,
life got.
before we talk about Us, let's take this opportunity. We don't have Chris Schmidt here tonight, but we did have a special bonus episode that we released a few days ago. Chris and special guest Aaron Ruiz talk Kingdom Hearts 3. If you played Kingdom Hearts 3, they do a a deep dive on it. So, did anybody get that? Ryan, Sean?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks. Okay. It's a lot of Kingdom Hearts talk. So go check out the last episode if you're interested in that. But before we get into our main conversation, now look, Vince proposed "Hey, how you been?" is the name of this topic, but we did get a bid for Chunkfire Stories on Facebook.
All right, well,
That's
we
really
need
good.
more votes before we could reach a final conclusion.
Should we post a Google Doc or should we make a decision between the two? Because those are the only two that we have any kind of like consensus on.
Well, does anyone else have any other ideas? No.
About a Chunkfire episode? What?
Ryan,
We've already lost
Ryan?
Ryan.
Ryan, what are you doing right now? What are you
are we
working on?
doing? What is this thing that I'm recording voice on?
Ryan, are you playing with Legos?
Should I put the Legos down?
You should put the Legos down.
No.
We're deciding on the segment that we talk about what we've been up to, whether it should be called Chunkfire Stories or Hey, how you been?
Oh.
Do you have an opinion on the topic?
Let's try out the Chunkfire stories. Let's
Okay.
just try it out. Do we have to decide right now?
Okay, here's how we start this.
All right.
Tonight on a new episode of Chunkfire Stories, Matt Chewy asks Sean Davis, "Hey, how you been?"
Well, gather around, you children, around the chunk fire, and I'll tell you a story. Good. I went skiing this last weekend. I actually went snowboarding. Because snowboarding is way cooler than skiing.
It
That's what all
is.
the kids do.
That's a fact.
What, snowboarding?
But yeah, super fun. Friends, every year I go out to Denver and snowboard with some friends and fall down the mountain repeatedly and do my best of causing internal bleeding. So that I'm alive still and don't have any broken bones.
Well, I know you had a good time because I saw your Venmo status updates, and I went, "Oh, Sean's posting some funny Venmos, and he's spending money, so he's on vacation."
Spending a lot of money. It's expensive to go skiing. You know, lift tickets. Like the Nordic sports are all like rich white people sports. Yeah, it's because lift tickets are freaking ridiculous, and so are skis and snowboards and everything.
Yeah.
But it's still fun. So yeah, that was great. I did that, and then what else? I saw a thing. I watched that anthology series on Netflix, Love, Death, and Robots. Has anyone else watched any of that?
Oh, I've
No,
seen
but
the
I
Not
just
yet.
found out about that, and it looks fun. I think is it fun?
Yes, I'd say fun's a pretty accurate descriptor. It's hit and miss, but luckily they're all pretty short. So the ones that suck, you're like, oh, that was just like 10 minutes. It didn't cost me much of my life. But there's some in there that are really, I will say this: all of them have really interesting animation styles. Even the ones I don't like, I still kind of appreciate the animation. I don't know if you guys, Ryan or
Okay.
Vince, did you say you hadn't started it yet either, Vince?
No, I haven't. I'd heard
Yeah, me neither.
mixed things. Originally,
Yeah.
the concept interested me, but then I heard some negative feedback, so I kind of put it further down on my list of things.
Oh yeah, I mean they're definitely not all winners, that's for sure. But there's some in there that I genuinely like a lot, and like I said, I don't know, I kind of found something in most of them, even if it was just the animation. So I'll give that a check, and like I said, they're all like the longest one's 15 minutes. Some of them are like less than 10 minutes. So
Okay.
it's not like it's a huge investment either. Like if you have a couple minutes free time, I'd recommend checking out. And they have, like some recognizable voice actors they get for episodes here and there. So it's cool. It's fun. It's a fun robot. If you like robots, who likes
like
robots?
robots.
I like
You like
love, theoretically, and death is maybe we don't like death, but
Cancels the love out, so now you just get robots.
so yeah, exactly, just
I'll
robots.
take it.
I'll take it too. Take what we can get.
And then I've been playing this game, came out I think last week, this little puzzle game called Baba Is You. Has anyone heard of that game?
I have heard of it. I think I might even have it in my wish list, but I don't know. And I think I probably just added it on a impulse.
Is this like I'm Baby?
I am Groot. I don't know what I am Baby is.
You don't know the meme I'm Baby?
Oh, I don't know.
All right, never mind.
No,
Look it
Ryan,
up.
sorry, Ryan. No, You
I
derailed this
only am
conversation.
snowboard cool, not what these meme kids are talking about. Well, Baba Is You is, well, Ryan I know remembers Lolo, that old NES game that we had.
Yep.
And Chewy, I think you did too, because I think we.
Oh yeah,
do you
because
remember that
we
game?
bought that weird bootleg retro console
Yes.
and played it at your parents' house, and I played Lolo for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I think I might have even finished it.
I think
I love that game.
I remember watching it, and you got hooked on it. And I think you were telling me you were playing it even when you weren't hanging out. I could be wrong, but
I got a ROM for it.
That's
on my
right, that's
phone.
right, you got it
I was
anyway.
playing it on my
Yeah.
phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lolo.
That's right. I remember
Anyway,
that too.
sorry.
Yeah.
So
Lolo.
the closest thing I could kind of you compare it to Baba Is You is Lolo, but imagine like Lolo, like where it's a grid kind of based adventure puzzle kind of game, but where part of the game is you constantly redefining the rules of the game in the game itself. It's kind of it's hard to describe,
That
but
sounds like a lot of game there.
it's like not even like really programmed, not that complicated, but basically parts of the puzzle or the the game world and the environment are like little words referencing the game world. So let's say there's a rock and a door and a lava pit. In the game world, there'll be a word that says rock, and you could push this word around and you could put it next to verbs, and then you could put it next to modifiers. So it says rock is stop. You can't do anything. This rock's going to stop you. But if you put it next to rock is move, you can move the rock around. But if you put it next to, let's say you put it next to lava, and then or lava is move. Now you can move the lava around instead of it killing you. Or you could turn yourself into the rock and move around. And it's you just got to play it. It's real addictive. It's the like Lolo one screen puzzle things, and they're just really, you feel so smart like when you figure out one of those really tricky ones. It's
I
really
love those
fun.
games like where that or Portal or where
Yes,
you walk into the
yes,
room
yes.
and you part of the process of playing is just staring at the screen, not
Yes.
moving. The screen is just sitting there.
Yeah.
You're not moving the camera or anything.
Yeah.
You're just staring at it for 15 minutes and go, okay, I know what to do now.
Exactly.
That's such a satisfying gameplay experience.
And they do some good quality of life things where they have a reverse button where it's not, you could restart the level obviously, but you could just move back a couple spaces. So like a lot of those games like Portal or Lolo or whatever, right? You make a mistake and like, I know what I got to do, and you got to restart the whole level again and do it. But this, you just like rewinded a couple moves and like, now I don't have to start like play through this whole thing again. I just rewinded a couple things.
That's
So,
kind of nice.
Yeah, so stuff like that. But highly recommend. Super fun. It's relatively. I know it's on Switch. I haven't been playing on Steam, but it'd be perfect for Switch. I just had some credit on Steam, so I got it on PC. But
What's it called again?
Baba Is You.
Okay, I'm gonna see if it's on Switch because I've been looking through and Switch has quite a library on their store.
So
All right.
so that's what I've been up to. Fun times at the El Royale.
Cool. Why don't you ask somebody? Hey, how
Okay.
they been?
Hey, how you been, Vince? I mean, chunk fire bending. What are we? What's it called?
Don't worry about
my
it.
Just
Just
tell
name
us
is
about
not
poop
chunk
on the
fire
floor
bending.
again.
Not again.
Okay, good. What's up? What's going on?
Well, let's see. I just went to a ramen place and just now. but I didn't get ramen. I got some pork fried rice, and it was delicious.
Ooh, that does sound good.
Live your dreams.
I lived my dreams. It was
That doesn't
good.
actually sound good.
Well, it was, I had 10 minutes left in happy hour, so I got all the food that was marked down, and it was the best decision of my life.
Good. Man, you made the best decision of your life on this very evening.
Yeah. So
Just
we're
minutes
gonna talk
ago.
Live
about
your
it.
best life, Vince.
you
Live
picked
your
a good
best
time
life.
to ask me how have I been, because I just made the best decision apparently. Let's see. I have a big disc golf tournament coming up
Ooh.
day after tomorrow that I've been training for.
Oh yeah, up in my neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, it'll be right next to your house. It'll be 3
Good.
days.
You can come abduct me and we'll get some food.
Yeah, we can get some TJ tacos. Those are delicious.
Great, we can do that.
Okay.
Is there a cash prize for this disc golf
There is a
tournament?
cash prize. If I play well, then I will win hundreds of dollars, maybe
good.
thousands. Who knows?
How many tacos could you buy with that?
A lot. I could pretty much buy the whole place.
Still not enough to sate my hunger.
No, it's not. Man, this
Right.
taco. That one that you got that was all buttery. It was the best.
It's the
Buttery?
buche taco.
A buttery taco?
No, it's the buche. It's the pork.
Oh.
So, I think, but they marinate it really juicy and it tastes very buttery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one was good. But other than that, I've just been, working like crazy. And then, let's see. Well, my kids have been getting up at like 3 or 4 in the morning.
And pooping
And
on
they-
the floor?
Like just what? No more pooping on the floor. Thank
Ooh.
goodness. Yeah, they've upgraded to.
This is
I don't know if
Best time of your life.
I'd call this an upgrade, but they wake up at 4 in the morning, and it's not like they like slowly wake up. Like they're fully awake at 4 a.m. And I don't know how they happen to get to this state in their life, but I'm not fully awake. So my goal is to still sleep while having 2 fully awake children who are asking me for things.
That's the system my wife uses on me.
I feel like that's just the future of the system for humanity. Like,
Yeah.
is there anyone that will turn that down?
I'd get paid in chicken nuggets if they would pay me in that.
I mean, cut out the middleman. The cash is just going to
Come
turn
on.
into nuggets anyway.
We know what this is.
Well, they're also dinosaur chicken nuggets. So
Oh my
The
gosh.
purple box ones from Costco.
that's the one.
Oh, that's the pinnacle.
You know they're on sale right now on coupon. They're like
I didn't know
$4
that.
off. So
boy,
get
oh boy.
yourself some
I
dino.
haven't had
nuggets.
those. I like the Foster Farms kind. They're not in any reptilian shapes, but they taste still good.
No, you gotta get those chicken ones in the purple box. Vince, did I tell you I renewed my Costco card? I might have in the last episode. It's just a big deal in my life.
Oh wait, how long ago did you get it?
Oh, couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks
Man.
ago.
Well, welcome to the club.
I feel back in the family I had been kicked from.
Are you an executive member, Chewy?
No, I said don't upsell me. I just want to get in the building.
What does
Okay.
executive membership even give you?
Oh wait,
know.
let me explain. So I don't know if you guys actually
This
know
is
this.
important.
So I got promoted. Well, it's not really a promotion. It was more of a lateral move. But I'm now the membership supervisor. So I'd be able to answer all of your membership questions, Chewy.
Oh, and I have
Oh,
so
man.
many.
Maybe we could have a bonus episode where you just describe
Yeah.
the Costco memberships.
Sure.
Okay, look, I only got 2 questions for you.
All right.
Can I buy stuff at Costco with whatever card I have?
Yes.
Can I get hot dogs at the food court?
You could even do that without a membership.
Depending on the Costco, right?
Yeah, I mean, my Costco, the food court's outside, so
But
you
if,
could.
if it's inside, you need to either sneak in or have a card, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I have a card, so I'm covered no matter what, right?
Yeah, you are.
All right, those are the only questions I had.
Wait, Vince, but can I buy something from the food court if I don't have a card? Like if it's able to get in otherwise?
I mean, they would probably ask you for your card at the door, but you could just be like,
I want to buy alcohol, and they have to let me in.
sure. Or you could just
That-
like not respond to them and just, pretend they don't exist, which is what 90% of the human race does to Costco employees. So,
Oh.
Did you know in Colorado the state law is that if you could only sell alcohol from one of your branches in the entire state, or in the city or the county or something like that? By which
Huh.
I mean that only one Costco in all of Denver sells alcohol because
Yeah.
a liquor license only counts for the one location. You
Wow.
yeah,
can't-
that's
yeah,
true.
It's really
That's
weird.
silly.
It is silly.
Interesting.
I think
Yeah.
in Utah they can't sell alcohol or beer over like 3% alcohol content.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah.
So that's just water if it's 3%.
I mean, mouthwash.
Which is weird
because
because you'll find like a Stone or a familiar brand and like, oh, it's the Stone IPA. Isn't this like a 6%er? But then you'll look on the can and they brewed a special batch or whatever. It's only 3%. It's really
Utah
weird.
branch. Yeah,
You got their market. Interesting.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's terrible.
All right,
But Chewy, you need to be an executive member. You're going to be getting 2% cash back on all your purchases.
Look, I went there the other day and I got a hot dog and a soda for $1.50. Anyway, let's get this back on track.
That's the best deal ever, by the way.
Look, no, for less than $4, I think you can get a slice of pepperoni pizza, a giant hot dog, and a refillable soda. That shouldn't be legal, but there we go. There we are.
Yeah, and the slice of pizza is like 2 big slices.
The only thing that I could afford was because they everything is expensive in Canada. Food was like 30% more expensive, but I lived across the street from a Costco, and they still had a toonie for a hot dog and a drink for a toonie, which is like a $2 coin. They call them toonies.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just keep my soda cup and then I would go down every day and refill it at the soda machine.
Sean,
it was the greatest.
You remind me of every old person that has to use one of the electric carts.
But I wasn't rude.
Oh no,
to
Sean,
any
you've become what
employees.
you hate.
I know.
It's okay.
Now hate?
You're a starving artist in college. It's okay. I'm going to
Yeah,
allow it for that
that's
period of
acceptable.
your life. Vince, you got anything else to share?
Let's see.
Sounds like you don't.
Nah, not really. I'm on some new meds. That's fun.
Why don't you go ahead and ask someone else how they've been doing?
Hey, anybody else on meds?
Oh boy.
Hey, Ryan.
Ugh.
Let me tell you about all the meds I'm on right now. I assume you're asking me what I've been up to.
Hey, Ryan. What's the scuttlebutt?
Oh, let me tell you what the scuttlebutt is.
You think? Okay, yeah.
So a while back, I forgot to mention it. I finished this show. Did I mention it? Dollhouse. Are you guys familiar with this show?
I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I had watched.
No, not Russian Doll.
Oh, sorry.
Dollhouse.
No, you mean the Joss Whedon one?
Yes.
Oh, I have not watched that. No, I know.
Yeah.
What it is, though.
Some friends insisted that I watch it because I have mixed feelings on Joss Whedon, and they're like, "No, this show is the show that will convince you he is worthy of his praise." And it did not convince me of such. But I will say it was well ahead of its time. I can't necessarily recommend it because it is sort of a long show. Because back in the 90s, or actually this is early 2000s, shows actually did full seasons. So we're looking at 24 episodes per, that kind of thing versus the 8 or 10 we get nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. It's an interesting show because if you watch it now, you're like, whoa, this show was like 15 years ahead of Westworld. It did a lot of things that Westworld's trying to do right now, and honestly, I think they did some of those things better. In terms of show making, it's what you expect. It's not good, but it's still interesting because it has a lot of concepts that we're tackling, I think, right now in show making and movie making. So I don't know. I think it's worth it for that to see how the direction they took things, and a lot of shows I think probably took nods from it potentially.
It was only on for like 2 or 3 seasons, right?
Yeah. And it has a lot of familiar faces that you're like, oh wow, this person was in it. Like Patton Oswalt was in it for a while. Anyway, it's an interesting show. Since you guys mentioned emulators, Chewy, you were saying how you're playing Lolo, or we were playing it. Me and my roommates recently downloaded a N64 emulator, and I've been playing that because I was trying to get R64 to work. But,
you had mentioned the games you were trying to find.
Yeah, and I think it works, but I couldn't find like all our golden, GoldenEye and Star Fox. So we just did it on an emulator, and it actually works really well, except that we're playing with a PlayStation controller, so it's kind of goofy.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I ordered some adapters for 64 controllers to USB, so we're going to see how that works. If that, if
that's
that works
fun.
out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's...
if it works out, we should all play.
I think all of our cartridges are all mixed around from that time when I brought that bootleg console over, and then stuff got moved in the garage and upstairs and back down.
Yeah.
I think all of our cartridges are all mixed up.
That's probably what it was, because I couldn't find those games, and so I was like, where are these? I know we have all these games, so okay, that's probably what happened then. All right.
At some point, all of the three of us need to go over to your parents' house and just like look around and repool them and
Yeah.
split them back up because they're
Get
all
them organized and
And
Yeah.
same with like the Genesis, some of the Genesis games and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing. I have all the cases for them on my shelf, so I know which ones are mine. But anyway, that's a
Okay.
project for the future. What else you been
Yeah.
up to, Ryan?
So not too much. I did watch randomly this movie called The Stanford Prison Experiment on Netflix.
Mm.
It was this experiment done in the 70s where they just took a bunch of students, threw them in a prison, and told them this is a simulation. Like half of them were guards, half were prisoners, or something like that. And they just kind of let them go and see what happens. And it was kind of horrific because it turned out exactly like a real prison would turn out. Like the guards assumed this position of authority and abused their authority, and the inmates assumed, positions of rebelliousness and violence, and anyway, this whole other thing. And I think every person in the movie I recognize. Like he's like currently some adolescent, or not adolescent, but early 20s maybe, like actor that you'd recognize from something or other. And they're all the kind of actors that you like. Why do I want to punch this person in the face? You know what I mean? Like Peeta
Every
from
one of
Hunger Games. Even though I actually like Josh Hudson, whatever his name is, but
Hutcherson.
something about his face.
Hutchinson.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Someone
Anyway.
they're just punchable faces.
Yeah, you just have punchable faces.
Pete
So I had
from
very
Mad
little
Men.
sympathy for the inmates. Anyway.
Oh.
But it's an interesting film. Other than that, I think that's about it. I haven't really been up to too much other than those things.
All right then.
Yeah.
Matt, what about you? Have you been watching and playing and reading and singing and listening to things?
I have some devastating news, some true adversity that I'm facing right now. So I was getting ready to send my PlayStation in to get it repaired, and you told me that I should get
Yes.
my data backed up. Looking through it today, all of my data is gone already. It's all been
What?
disappeared.
Oh no.
I think at some point, and this was a while ago, but I think I might have done a reformat or some kind of system restore on there,
No.
and I'm missing all of my saved data. So, this is truly the biggest
That's
adversity I've ever
That's like
faced.
my biggest fear. I have nightmares of that happening.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Chewy,
I have
now you know my pain.
No,
I was
no.
about to say this might be Vince getting revenge.
Hey, Vince, I want you to know that I knew that you were about to say that. Also, every time you bring it up, I care less and less about. In fact, if I could go back in time, I would give it back to you with your data, let you get to the end of the game, steal it, and then delete it. All right. I want you to know the fact that you were on the Deco tree, drives my spite for the situation every time you bring it up more and more.
Wait, that's all. That's as far as you were, Vince.
Yeah, he was on the Great Deku tree.
Oh well, then never mind.
Yeah, Vince, you have really oversold this.
Also, this
Yeah,
was a game that Vince played during his childhood. The Spider-Man is a game I put a lot of hours into. I was 80% on my
Well, I was gonna
my
say,
save file.
was it just Spider-Man? Did you lose anything else? I mean, it still sucks if it was just Spider-Man, but did you lose anything else?
I lost Horizon, which I was maybe 10 hours into, but I hadn't played it in so long that I was going to maybe restart it. And then I lost Arkham Knight, I had basically finished Arkham Knight except for some of the DLC. So I'm really only bummed about Spider-Man, and I'm kind of devastated about it because I don't want to I don't want to start over. But I mean, I have all these new Switch games, and also I have there's Tomb Raider games I haven't played yet. So I think I probably will go back and grind through Spider-Man. Probably not for a few months, but I'm just really bummed about it, But
Yeah, it sucks.
Do you have PlayStation Plus?
No, I've never had PlayStation Plus.
I was
so-
going to say, because there's cloud saves, and sometimes they automatically back up, but if you don't even have it, it won't.
Yeah, and I investigated. I tried lots of things, but yeah, it's gone. It's gone. But on the upside, I've been playing a game on the Switch called Snake Pass. It's an indie game. I had it on my Steam wish list for a really long time, but it never seemed to go down on sale. There's a point for certain types of games where it has to go below a certain point on sale for me to pick it up. And then Switch had it for $7 on sale, so I finally am like, all right, awesome, I can play this game. But are you guys familiar with Snake Pass at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I've never played it, but it's the one where it's the weird physics controls where you're controlling a snake and you're having to navigate a 3D platforming world.
Yeah, that channel, Game Maker's Toolkit, the one that you recommended, Mark Brown, he had it. I don't know if it was last year or the year before that the game came out, but he had it as one of his game of the years. Yeah, which I thought was a really weird choice because it's just this weird indie game that kind of got mixed reviews. But it's about the controls, just trying to figure out how to make a snake move around, in an environment like there's a button that is go forward, but if you try to go straight, you'll lose momentum because snakes have to like go side to side, and you know, the way that you wrap around things, it's like the game itself is really simple, just collect all the things, but you have to figure out how to do it as a snake in a weird jungle gym type thing. So that's pretty fun. I'm really
amazing.
Yeah, it's a good time, and it's got like N64 aesthetic, like kind of like Banjo-Kazooie, like everything's kind of bright and happy and cartoony. So like it, I mean, for Vince, for you in particular, because that was your nostalgic console, probably.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
we're a snake,
and you're a snake, and you're a snaky guy, so you would probably enjoy it. So I've been playing that, and then maybe I put together a list of movies from the last few years that I missed in theaters just because I don't work at the movie theater anymore, so I don't see everything. And there was like we got a good list of like 10 to a dozen or so movies. So last night we started working through and we saw Sorry to Bother You, which
awesome.
That was not what I was expecting it to be. I mean, Sean hasn't seen it,
yeah,
so
no
I won't get
spoilers,
into details.
Where did you watch it? Is it streaming anywhere?
Yeah, it was on Hulu. It's on Hulu.
I don't know if I have Hulu.
Which one is that again?
I actually put on the list. I went through and organized it based on which streaming services they're on and which ones I have to rent. So I can send that to you if you want.
Yeah.
Sorry to Bother You is the one with telemarketing, and the guy from Atlanta is in it.
Yeah.
I don't really want to say anything more than that because it gets wacky. So, but yeah, that one's a good one. So we have some movies we're working through, and then finally, we found a theater that was still playing A Star Is Born, and we were gonna do something else that day, but we were like, oh hey, this is still in theaters, so we went. It was at one of those indie theaters, and it was actually A Star Is Born extended edition. And I looked up, and it was basically like, okay, there's an extra song, and all the songs are like a verse longer. I'm like, okay, and it's just like an extra 10 minutes because it's got more music in it. So like, cool, because I still hadn't seen A Star Is Born. That was fun because I had never seen any version of A Star Is Born before, and Maeve, this was her, like the third or fourth one that she'd seen, so she was super familiar with the story and can talk and was able to tell me about like the things that were the same between the different versions. And for me, it was completely new. I personally, I loved it. I really liked it a lot. I loved the soundtrack. And I just being a fan of Lady Gaga, I liked that they modeled, at least it's hard for me to compare it to the other versions, but I know that some of them are really old, but it's interesting. I like that they modeled it after her career. You know, she was doing clubs and then did the piano stuff and then kind of transitioned into the pop thing. So I like that they seems like they did a good job updating it from what I can tell. Again, because I haven't seen the older versions, but yeah, I really like the music. I had a good time. Had a good time watching that. And that is more or less what I've been up to, I think. Right? Yeah. Whose turn is it? Is it Sean's turn? Sean. Hey, you started. Vince went.
I went.
We've all told our campfire story.
All right, the Chunkfire stories have been dispersed. Okay, great. Well, now that all the Chunkfire stories have been dispersed in a manner where we all ask each other, hey, how have you been? This segment has ended. Now it's on to the next segment.
We're all on fire.
So, do we all... we all agree that Chunkfire was a success.
Yeah, we agreed that it happened, and moving on. So it's time for the main event. We're going to talk about the movie that we came here to talk about. Before we continue, spoiler warning: there will be heavy plot spoilers from here on out. Sean, take it away.
Cool. So we're going to talk about Us, the Jordan Peele second directorial film, follow-up to Get Out from 2 years ago. And we're going to try something not really different, but we're going to briefly kind of run down the movie, just give you guys a brief plot synopsis, give you a little refresher. And for those of you who are still listening who haven't seen the movie but have no interest in seeing the movie, maybe this will give you an idea of kind of some context of what we're talking about. So Us starts in a flashback prologue in the mid-'80s. A little girl, her name's Adelaide, watching some TV, Hands Across America. She goes to the boardwalk in the fair with her parents in Santa Cruz. She wanders off alone, finds herself in a house of mirrors, and some creepy, weird stuff's happening. And she runs into what looks like another girl. And then we cut. We're now in modern day. Adelaide's a grown adult, and she's with her family, and they're driving off to a little summer vacation. They get to their house, her old kind of like cabin. Some memories come back. Her husband wants to go to the beach at Santa Cruz, but she doesn't want to because of, whatever happened there. But he finally convinces her. So they go to the beach and they hang out with their friends. Tim Heidecker's there, apparently. He's a normal person.
Sort of.
Kind of,
Well,
yeah. I guess he's...
He's never a normal person.
And Elizabeth Moss is there. And they have twins. But Adelaide's kind of on edge. She's also has a weird relationship with Elizabeth Moss and Tim Heidecker. But her son goes off to use the restroom, and they kind of can't find him. He sees the Muir house, but she panics, freaks out, but they find each other, and it was just kind of a weird incident. So they go home that night. They're all kind of getting ready for bed, and she's kind of trying to not freak out based on her old memories and whatever happened to her years ago. And her husband's trying to figure out what's going on and kind of console her. So they're going to bed, and then all of a sudden their son says, hey, there's a family out on the porch. And they go outside, and there's just this whole bunch of weird people standing out in front of their house. So then the film kind of takes a turn, and it turns into Crazy Town, where this other family kind of comes invades. That's a home invasion thing. They come invade their house, and they all look just like their family counterparts. And they kind of psychologically torturing them. They all kind of are paired up with their own doppelgangers. They all end up kind of breaking free, getting out on the lake and trying to escape. We cut to the Tim Heidecker family, who gets massacred by their doppelgangers, stabbed in the neck with scissors. What else? They get to the Tim Heidecker house, and they find the doppelganger murderers. They realize they're murderers and not their actual friends. So they try to escape. They get in their car, and they don't know what's going on. The next morning, they get to the Santa Cruz boardwalk, and everything is just massacred. The entire, city is just dead people everywhere. Things are on fire. And the main Adelaide confronts the main doppelganger. Her name is Red. And she finds out that there's been this underground civilization of weird puppet people that have been in America for decades. Some weird experiment where all of the soul has been split. I don't know exactly. We'll discuss all that aspect.
We need to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, but anyway, so you find out there's these puppet people, and this is the puppet people's rebellion. They're rising up to come to the surface, and they're killing all of their counterparts. That's what's been happening. So that's she finds that out. The doppelganger kidnaps her son, takes her down to the basement. She goes after her, and they have this big fight. She ends up killing her doppelganger and rescuing her son. They come back out to the surface and are safe, although the world is apparently it's taken over now by just weird puppet people who have scissors and orange jumpsuits. And that's pretty much the movie. And then there's one final little twist, but
let's talk about that
I almost
later.
don't know if I want to talk about the summary, because we'll get to that later.
Let's talk about that later, because I have a lot of thoughts about the twist.
So, yeah. Anyways, that's the movie, though. So
there you go.
Maybe a little longer than I was thinking, but
shorter next time.
Shorter next time, but
okay.
I feel like I covered all the important things.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is Us. So, what did we think of Us? Hey, Vince, why don't you start, since you have seen this movie?
I totally have
Allegedly.
seen this movie. Okay.
Initial reactions.
I thought that it was a fun time at the movies. I was engaged throughout the entire thing. I think I would have actually liked if it explained less about the universe that it created, because I actually think that it maybe gave me too much information to where I was like, oh, okay. All right. And I just felt like it was maybe, I don't know. I think this is one of those movies where if things were less explained, I think I would have actually enjoyed it more if it was more ambiguous about what it was trying to do.
Yeah,
I think I would have enjoyed it more.
Cool. But overall, good time at the movie.
Overall, it was fun. It was fun being in a packed theater on a Friday night seeing this movie.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Chewy, what's your thought?
I think it was excellently made, and this is going into it with high expectations based on Jordan Peele's last horror movie, which I didn't have any expectations for. So unfair for this movie to have such high expectations. But I think for the most part, it was really well made. Pacing, the acting were fantastic. I found this movie to be frustrating at times. I think some of that is fair criticism, some of it isn't. I think the second act of the movie falls victim to a lot of tropes that I see in common home invasion movies. And with horror movies, I've always been less invested with home invasion movies than like something supernatural, because there's always a part of me that's just like, it's another person, just fight them. Like, throw something at them. And in a movie where it's literally doppelgangers, I'm sitting there screaming at the screen. It's literally the same amount of muscle mass on the other side of that coffee table. Just run up and kick him in the head. You know what I mean? Or like the whole idea, like everything's a weapon. Like, you're literally holding a weapon right now. Or they handcuffed you to a 1-inch piece of wood. That's not very hard. You know, like in home invasion movies, I think one of the few that I can think of in recent history was You're Next, where it didn't do that because I felt like the characters were...
Well, yeah.
And that was another thing with Get Out, is that, like, by the end, I'm like, oh, yes, good, you're making the right decisions. I think that this movie rectified some of those problems from the second act later on by explaining why it made those choices. So, ultimately, it didn't really detract too much from the movie, because later on, when they started making smart decisions, I went, okay, yeah, cool. And then, we'll talk about the twist, but I'm really mixed on how I feel about the twist. I think thematically it works, if we talk about just kind of the deeper meanings behind this movie. But logistically, and like maybe what Vince was talking about like the rules and like the logistics of this universe, like logistically and story arc wise, and pretty much in every other way, the twist doesn't not work for me. So I'm really mixed on kind of the end note of the movie. I kind of left the movie going, all right, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Ryan, how about you? How'd you feel?
Yeah, I liked it. Overall, I thought it was well made, very entertaining movie. I share some of your frustrations, Matt, about the film itself, and I think I best can digest the movie by splitting out the how versus the what. I think there's a lot to unpack in the what of the film. What was the movie saying? Mm-hmm. What was the movie itself? And then how it went about doing it. And I think the how is where I got more frustrated. And I hope we get enough opportunity today to kind of split those apart and dissect them. Because like I said, I have some frustrations, and I'm not invested in the home invasion movies. I don't really like those. And some of the logistics of the film, I think, is where the movie gets bogged down in. And I think by separating the two, I can actually enjoy the movie more, because without getting the movie, you're going to get dragged down if you try to figure out what happens in this movie versus just understanding what the movie's saying.
Right.
So I think that with that understanding, I'm coming to appreciate the movie more and more as time goes by since I've seen it.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. I think we're probably in a similar place. We all shared our initial reactions.
Or Sean,
I'll say my reaction.
Yes, say what you say.
My reaction was the summary. That's how I react to the film.
You understood what happened in the movie.
Playing it in my mind over and over. I think I agree with aspects of what every one of you said. Different things. I definitely liked it a lot. I completely understand some of your frustrations, though, with the how, what you're talking about, Ryan. Yeah. For me, also, I struggled with the ending, and I go back and forth about how I feel about the ending. I think also they did explain too much, like you're saying, Vince. Mm-hmm. I think, to me, like, as much as like I like Get Out, I think it was harder to separate what the movie was about than from the plot itself, right? Because they were a little bit more intertwined with what the film was saying and what was happening in the film. Whereas in this, they are, I think, separated enough that you can just watch the film, and it could just be, this is a thriller, whatever, slasher kind of movie.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at it at any other level besides that, and it still makes, quote unquote, perfect sense, right? But I agree that what I enjoy most about it is looking at those other layers. So,
right. Cool.
But overall, I still really enjoyed it, though. I go back and forth. What if I liked it more and less than Get Out? And I don't know why. I think we always tend to we have to compare a
Yeah.
person's work with itself or their other works all the time. I'm not sure why, but I don't have a good answer for that right now, though. But
yeah, and I'm trying to. I came into this episode with the idea that we would probably do that, so I'm trying to keep that to a minimum.
I mean, it's okay.
They are very
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
different movies, but
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some things that are worth comparing. But did you have any talking points for specific plot details that you wanted to open up, or?
So there's a couple things. One, so I guess let me ask you guys this, and maybe even to an extent, Get Out. This is a quote unquote scary movie. How much were you guys actually scared by this movie, though? And I don't mean if you're not. It's not a criticism per se. I guess what I'm saying is I wasn't really ever scared in the same way like Conjuring or I don't know what another like a thriller where I'm on my edge and I don't want to look. There wasn't any of that moment for me, and I'm not trying to criticize it because I think it was still really good. There were just creepy ideas and creepy moments, but similar to Get Out, there wasn't a time where I was like frightened.
Well, I'll say that there are certain things that scare me in horror movies no matter what. And one of them is when the camera's too close to the character. Because I'm like, just pull the camera out. I need to see what's behind me. I need to see what's in the hallway to the right. Pull the dang and they did a good amount of those in this movie. So, and there's a couple other things that are blanking right now, but there's a few other horror movie tricks that no matter what, if they put it in a horror movie, it's gonna scare me. But I would say that for the most of this movie, I was more stressed out.
Yeah.
It was more of an anxiety than a scared, especially when I'm like I'm sitting there and someone's chasing someone and I'm like, okay, good. You knocked over the bookcase. Okay, good. All right. And it's like I'm sitting there just like, come on, just do the smart thing right now. Right. That's kind of how I was feeling. So I was engaged, but I wasn't engaged in a, I'm actively frightened type for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of what I was getting at is that, I wasn't as frightened. That I think he has a really good eye. Actually, I don't know, maybe it was whoever the director of photography was, but of setting up for shot composition on really creepy images that stay with you. The thing that kind of got me the most was the first time you see the family in the driveway. That shot of them just standing there, that was the creepiest thing in the whole film. And I won't even say that was scary. It was, again, just more creepy.
It's unsettling.
Unsettling, yeah, perfect, exactly. And it was the same thing from Get Out. The scariest moment for me, is when the guy's just running at the camera. Again, it's just unsettling. It's just these images and ideas themselves that are unsettling. And then the rest of the film is stressful and it's thrilling, but it's not the same as scary, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think for me, anyways, in this film in particular, is I think one reason that I wasn't quite as engaged on that kind of scary level is because to me they didn't really establish the threat early enough. Does anyone, because the family invades, you get a sense of, okay, obviously this is weird and creepy, but they don't show anyone die. And as much as that is a trope, you see someone get killed early in a scary movie, that's kind of there for a reason, right? Because that these guys are going to so the whole time I was like, are they actually even going to kill them? It seems like they don't really want to kill them. Maybe it's not, you know what I mean? Does anyone get that confusing that way?
Especially with how they so matter-of-factly just annihilate the whole other family.
Exactly.
Right. And that's going to start getting into a little bit of the plot elements because Red makes says a line about I'm gonna drag this out or something like that, right?
I kind of wanted it to be. I wish they showed the Tim Heidecker family getting murdered before it, because that's not till way later.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. It would establish the threat early on. I don't know. It's kind of maybe rearrange some of that.
Yeah, it does. In fact, this is not too relevant, but it actually, because of that, made me think that the movie was a very different movie until about halfway through. I was thinking that this film was about actually mental health, and because this is occurring in her mind and the consequences of not treating mental illness drags her entire family down or some weird, I don't know. That was where I was thinking this is going because it shows us the flashbacks of her having a traumatized childhood. Anyway, because I didn't think this threat was real, I took it as a metaphor. The entire thing, in fact, until you reach a point of no return. Oh no, this is no longer a metaphor. Tim Heidecker is dead. But anyway, I want to make a comment on, Sean, your question about the scariness of the film. Did you guys watch this in a full theater? Because I feel like that always impacts
full.
my experience.
It was
full.
it was an 8:00 on a Sunday night, so it was decently attended, but not like packed.
Yeah, mine was full.
Okay.
Mine
Which
was
actually I
not at
think
all
makes it
full.
less scary.
It does, and that's what I'm getting at, Vince. Mine was a packed theater, a very active crowd, in that they were into it, not that they were being obnoxious.
Yeah.
In that, to me, I love that about going to see opening theater, especially for like a Marvel film, right? Just the energy in the theater, and and it had been a long time, I think, or since I've seen a scary movie at all, and then certainly since I've seen it in the theater. So probably Get Out was the last one. But anyway, so my theater was very active and very fun, and it does tone down the scariness of it, but in a way enhances it because
Right.
everyone reacts to it. And what I think Jordan Peele does so well is bringing you to the edge of suspense or tension or stress, and then throwing in humor, right? And then that humor makes you actually laugh more, right? Because your emotions are just at this heightened state, and by throwing in the humor, you even if it wasn't funny, you need to laugh.
Yeah,
right?
you get to come down a bit, and then it resets
Exactly.
you for the next one. You're not just you don't become
Exactly.
desensitized to being at that heightened state.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, it's a perfect like roller coaster of a film in terms of just up and down emotions and keeping you on the edge of your seat. So in that regard, I don't know if I could really say it was horrifying scariness, but it definitely was probably a more emotional meaning, scary, funny, than
More
it
of a ride.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I agree with that.
Yeah, and again, to kind of elaborate, Matt, on what you're saying about how you're stressed and there's anxiety. I think because I was analyzing the film, right? Because we're kind of like we're trying to piece it together, right? There's this extra level of stress, maybe because there's a mental or cognitive part of it rather than just a visceral side, and I think that adds to the anxiety. And Sean, to your point about why do we need to compare this to another past work, I think it informs our viewing experience. I mean, a movie should stand on its own. I think it's hard to not do that. But I think because we know Get Out was a well-crafted film, a well-thought-out film, and there was metaphor and a deeper meaning, we are looking for that in this film. At least I was. And so trying to piece that together, I think that adds another layer to the film that you wouldn't get from another film, right? So those are just my thoughts in terms of like a more visceral or emotional reaction to the film, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you guys feel like talking about some of the deeper meanings that this is framed against, or Sean, did you have any other talking points?
No, I mean, we'll just go with the flow. So that's I was gonna say. So, getting into some of the more kind of symbolic stuff, or what you guys felt the film is about, and I think there's a couple different ways you could go about this. But what were your thoughts on as if we said Get Out had a deeper meaning that was more entwined with the plot itself, and this one I think we all can agree was a little bit more separated, but I think in some ways it was even more heavy-handed is not the right word, but just like seeped in every aspect of it.
Right. Well, Get Out is kind of about complex race relations. I thought this movie was more about like social class relations and divide and that kind of thing, because for one, the Hands Across America framing device that the movie was set up, like that was an effort to stop that was like to fight like poverty and homelessness, I think, right? Mm-hmm. So it's already very heavy-handedly establishing, hey, this is going to be about like wealth inequality. But I think the idea that like there's this underground sect of people that are living in the exact same country that in the movie literally look like us, but figuratively they're all everybody's people, everybody's the same. That doesn't make anyone inherently better or worse than anyone else. It's just that like some people were fortunate to be born above the ground and some people were unfortunate to be born underground, and it has nothing to do with what kind of people they are. It's just the circumstances. You win the lottery, you get born in a upper class family, or you get born into poverty or whatever. So I think that is like the framing device, and I think that the kind of we're all the same. So why do we get all bogged up into that? Which leads into why I'm really mixed about the ending of the movie. So when you guys are ready to talk about the twist, let me know, because I want to come back to that.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely picked up on some of the class stuff. For me, there was those elements, but I think I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I think maybe this is the best film about Trump's America that I've seen, and it didn't even say or mention anything about our current political climate. But I think, to me, that's what the film was about. It was essentially about this idea that, you know, it's easy to call the other side, you know, someone else, whether that we politically or whatever it is, as these monsters, as someone we don't have to deal with. They're not us, or, you know, right? They're someone else. They're them. And I think, in a lot of ways, like I was saying earlier, to me, there was so much of this, every aspect of that kind of fed into this idea. Part of it is because it was no mistake that I think it started in the 80s. And I think in a lot of ways, our current political climate can be found, the seeds of that were in the 80s. This idea of extreme capitalism on one hand, where we're just about more, but we're also having hands across America, where this is this dichotomy, where it's just like this contradiction, and we're like, there's a schism, not just in terms of class, but just in terms of our identity as a country. We're just getting to these extremes. And I think that's kind of what the film is about, is that the people who are on the other side aren't anyone else. They're us. They're just the people who have embraced this extreme negativity. And I mean, obviously the film is seeped in, you know, motifs of reflection and, you know, you know, inversions of things and stuff. But I think, to me, that's ultimately kind of what was about. And this idea that the negativity and the schism is less about, you know, these arbitrary rules, and it's more about nature versus nurture. Right. And that's where I think that last twist of the film, why I go back and forth, because I initially did not like it, and then I thought about it and kind of liked it, then I did not like it. Yeah. And now I kind of rest on where I kind of like it. And I think it's because, to me anyways, it's making a statement about nature versus nurture. And if you nurture the hatred, if you nurture these extreme ideas of separating the country into different, you know, compartments, then you will become that monster. But if you nurture the humanity, the good side or whatever, then that's who you will be. And so, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm reaching. I'm sure I am in a lot of ways, but that's kind of what the film was about.
I actually don't think you're reaching at all. I think that everything in the movie kind of points to that, and to someone mentioned maybe a little heavy-handedly. But I want to go back based on what you just said, because I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. But how earlier somebody was mentioning that, I think it might have been you, about how if we had seen them kill Tim Heidecker's family earlier to establish the threat, right? Well, but again, that kind of goes against the theme of the movie, right? The fact that they aren't these monsters, we're just seeing them as the other, right? And maybe it's to the movie's strength that they keep it ambiguous as to how dangerous they really are, because really they are a family unit. So, like, and if we're trying to play into that theme, then it gets a little messy, because we start running into the problems of, do we establish the threat, the tone early, so that when they show up, we're scared, or are we trying to make the theme happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying too, just about prolonging the mystery, because there is a definitely tension and, you know, of not knowing as well. Like, are they there to kill them? Are they not? And so there is that dramatic tension for sure. I guess to me, it was just an issue is that when they do finally just show up and slaughter the other family, it's like it was like, oh, okay, that's all they are doing anyway.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? That, like, oh, it wasn't really building to anything. They were just doing what we kind of suspected they were doing anyway. So why didn't they just show us earlier to establish that threat? Anyway, that's just my thought process in terms of that. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know, Vince or Ryan, any thoughts on just kind of like some of the meanings and some of the other stuff you picked up on besides the straight up plot?
Sure. Yeah. And this, Sean, you touched on. You both have said things that right on par for what I was thinking. But Sean, you mentioned kind of like the tethering of the tools used to implement the meaning, and how they're disconnected more so in this film than in Get Out. And that's kind of what I was getting at when my first opening statement about how versus what. That I think we can the film is better understood separating the two, because what this film is trying to say and then how they got there are like two very different things. Because you're right, Jordan. I did read one little article thingamajiggy that Jordan Peele was like, he just flooded this thing with meaning upon like hidden little objects in the background. What did this mean? If you watch it again, you'll notice like all these little hidden gems.
Oh, I'm sure.
And he even said that he's a big fan of the movie The Shining, and that film is like frame by frame you can find different little hidden things everywhere, and that's certainly true in this film as well. So just focusing on the what right now, I guess, is just the us versus them. Obviously, I think that's pretty clear, and just the idea of otherness and the increasing division in our country. And it's interesting that we call it Trump's America, because I more see Trump as a symptom, but he kind of gets, but it's still fitting, right? The title is still fitting, I think,
it's for our era in time,
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. And we haven't really touched on the end just yet, but I think one point about that end is that why we have conflicted feelings, more so than thoughts. I think for me about that ending is because I think that twist is put in intentionally to confuse us, and by confusion I don't mean mentally or like cognitively, I mean more emotionally, and I think that's 100% intentional, because it kind of, the whole film we were in this us versus them mentality, but when that is thrown out the window by the twist, we start to question, well, what, like you're saying, nature versus nurture is one way to put it, but why do we treat these people as others? Are they different from us? Does that have meaning? Does that have any real meaning that should dictate our actions or treatment of them?
Well, I think unless you guys have any objections, I think we should talk about it, because I think I'll keep avoiding it.
Sure.
So
one thing I wanted to mention real quick too.
Yeah.
Well, just kind of in that context is one thing. It was, I think I liked it, but there was kind of like two twists, right? The first twist wasn't really a twist, but it was the second act turning point where you're just like, okay, this is what's going on, right? That's normally where like the big surprise or the big revelation. And so there was still that aspect of the film,
which
you tell me
fits
what
a
more structural. Yeah, just when you find out about the whole experiment and there's a whole a whole world like that and then alone, like let's say there wasn't the final movie twist, we would be referring to that as the big kind of like, surprisey thing, right?
Yes, but the movies did start with a prologue tag that said, in America, there are hundreds of secret tunnels that we don't know what they're for. Okay, gotcha, movie. There's going to be a secret tunnel thing at the end.
Well, yeah, I suppose. I don't.
Been hilarious though if it was just a random fact that they had in there, and they're like, "There's no tunnels." In this
and
movie.
never comes up.
It never comes up again. I guess what I mean is just like I wasn't foreseeing an entire underground society of puppet people. To me, that is kind of like, whoa, okay, it's a big underground. Like I was thinking, okay, maybe there's this family is living underground, or it's their weird thing. Like, but it's the entire country, and they're all weird experiment puppet people. Like to me, that was somewhat surprising.
Okay.
Also, I think it's funny, Sean, you keep calling them puppet people, even though like every conversation I've had about this movie is like the tethered and.
I've always been calling them the mole people.
Vince, what do you call them?
Frank and George.
All
of them. Individuals.
Every single one. They both have two names. They all have two names, Frank and George.
Rabid
Anyways, so my point in being is that when we talk about the twist, we're referring to basically the last shot of the film, right? Or the last minute or two of the film.
Okay, well, let's just be specific. So here's what I'm going to say I think you're referring to. That Adelaide, this entire time, was in fact a mole person.
Yes.
Or Frank and George.
She was a mole person. She was a mole person.
Puppet people.
The one that we thought was regular was a mole person because the old swap-a-roo happened off screen.
Yes. Which, the thing is, to me, like, that's kind of the, like, we all were expecting that, right?
I'm not surprised.
It's not a surprise.
Exactly.
But Sean, there's this other theory going on the internet. So now if you say the twist, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, that there's a kind of a working theory that the boy is also a puppet person.
Mole person.
I don't know if you're aware of this theory, but
Well,
I'm not
I don't
aware of
find
that
a lot of
theory.
credence in it. But I would
I mean,
actually
just-
like to bring it up because I don't know if you guys have thought about it.
Well,
And there's a couple other
But the
things.
boy went in fire.
I want to
Well,
I want to humor that, but I kind of also don't. I kind of want to put it on this, like put a pin in that for right now, just because I think that's going to complicate our.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
let's
that's
just
fine.
talk about the normal twist.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I want to. That's why I'm just only bringing that up.
yeah.
to-
We'll come back to that because I
Yeah.
am not
Well,
familiar with it.
I'm
so.
Can we
curious.
just take a brief moment to discuss the most frustrating part of the entire film?
I guess is it on topic? We're trying to build to something here.
It's going to be a 3-second mind
Okay, go
flip.
ahead.
Okay, do you remember when the girl is on top of the moving car and she's stabbing it, and then they slam on the brakes, and then she flies into the forest, and then the mom decides to get out of the car by herself and go into the forest?
Yeah.
That was the dumbest thing ever, and I don't understand why
Okay,
she did
all
that.
right.
That was the dumbest thing in the movie in the most recent 5 minutes, up until that had happened. Anyway, that was the second act that
Yeah.
frustrated me.
We
a
could
lot.
we'll
Anyway,
go back to
anyway.
some other
Yeah,
frustrating
we'll get back
things
to
too.
that.
So old Swaparoo happened for Adelaide. We've been with the doppelganger this entire time, which means that as from childhood, the doppelganger grew up with the normal family. The original Adelaide grew up in the bunker. Okay, I have to shelve that for a second though. So I was initially really upset by that twist because it felt like a now you see me twist. Because
Exactly. I was
because
gonna
I
say
was
the same thing.
I immediately I know it's a good twist if it's a good twist because everything clicks into place, right? And and this one I immediately started running like virus scans. You know, like do you guys do that? I'm
Yeah.
like, wait,
Yeah.
okay, let me think about the entire movie. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like, and
Oh no, totally.
and I was like, well, for one thing, that opens up a lot of logical questions about how the bunker worked, who was
Right.
who was running it. How did they get access to all those pairs of scissors? Do they had someone who ran
Okay.
up to the, you know what I mean? It opens up all these stupid questions that I shouldn't be answering. It's like Wreck-It Ralph level.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. So Matt, I'm so glad you brought that up. And that exact long sentence you just said is exactly why I have to separate the how versus the what.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
If I start trying to give logistics to this film, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It on a pure logic, humans can't teleport level
Right.
of making
Exactly.
sense.
And-
Legos can't travel through time.
Right.
Basically.
So we're there, right? And I'm asking all these logical questions about like, okay, how did that actually make sense, right? Then this is where I arrived. I went, okay, but actually for real though, how does this matter? Right? Because if
Right.
you have these two girls who are switched at, let's say they were 8 years old. I don't know how old they were. Right? And now they're in their 30s, probably close to 40, right? So they've lived most of their lives in their new environment. And from the way the movie establishes it, their memories have been repressed. Or at least what used to be Doppelganger Adelaide, but is now real Adelaide, right? She had repressed memories for a while. It's implied in the movies that she forgot that she was a mole person, right? So if both of these people grew up in their new environments and don't really remember their life before the swap happened, how does that affect anything? They're basically those characters now, right? So
yeah, exactly.
so I started really questioning, like, okay, it really did start feeling like okay, you guys, this is a really strange example. Do you guys remember Days of Future Past? Right?
Uh-huh.
And at the end,
Unfortunately.
Days of Future Past had this whole, like, is fate, can we control fate or something's written, right? And they had this really cool opportunity to say, okay, Mystique stopped the president from getting shot, but Logan was always destined to end up in Weapon X by General guy. I can't remember his name right now. Stryker, right? So that was supposed to be the twist. Like, Stryker still got Wolverine. He's still going to make him into a Weapon X. And then Stryker's eyes turned into Mystique,
Yeah.
right?
And they never follow up.
And they never follow up on it. And it's because I'm sure someone at the studio went, well, people don't know Stryker well enough, but they know when Yellow Eyes happen, it's Mystique, and they know that'll mean something, right? And that's where I started getting to with this twist with this movie. I went, this is just a dumb thing they threw in at the end, right?
Well, it reminds me, or like the Paranormal Activity, where she turns into a monster at the end because people want to see a monster at the end,
Right?
And
And
so yeah,
then I went on another journey, but that's kind of where, on day one, that's where I ended up with this movie. But after a few days, I started thinking about it, and I started coming around, and I want to pass the buck because I'm talking for a while.
Well, so let me, I guess, this is pretty much exactly how I felt after I saw it the first time. And my comparison to, you stole my comparison to Now You See Me, because that's exactly what I thought. But then I did the same thing. I thought about it like, well, what? She lived her whole life, is it? And that's where I'm kind of getting the nature versus nurture. But you know what? To counter that, and why I kind of now like it, is to compare it to another movie which I really like, and I really like the ending of, was Annihilation. Did any of you see Annihilation?
That's on my list I put together. I haven't seen it yet.
So I'll try not to get into spoilers or anything, Chewy, but at the very last shot, if you've seen Annihilation, you know what I'm talking about. Ryan, I think, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And all these people on the internet, or all these people, what does that mean? What does that mean? And they're missing the point. It doesn't mean anything. That's the whole point of the film. She is not that. The whole point of the film is that she has been chained, right? And that's what I got from this ending, is that it doesn't matter that she was wherever she, because she has been brought up, she has been nurtured in an environment where she is a normal person. She is just like everyone else.
Exactly. And that's where I eventually landed, where thematically it's great. For the idea that they're trying to push with this movie, if we're to go the thematic ideas that we all kind of talked about, if that's what the deeper meanings are in this movie, the decision to go, you know what, actually nothing does change from this because they're the same, fits perfectly. But structurally, character arc wise, every other way, it's a mess. I can't not think about it in those terms. So
I was trying to think in things I could try to explain away. And some things you kind of can, but other things are harder to.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why this movie is also maybe getting the praise that it's getting, and maybe people aren't addressing these kind of ideas as much, is just the genre that it's in as well. I feel like these kind of logistical things are kind of more forgiven in horror films, just because
the bar's low.
The bar is lower in terms of the plot needing to make total and complete sense.
Well, I don't know about that, because I always like looking at Interstellar, and that's seen as this epic great movie. But if you actually look at the logics of it, nothing makes sense. There's no science in that movie. They just did it because it was cool.
Fair enough.
But I'm not saying
pretty
that
cool, though.
It is cool.
And us are the same.
Yep, it's called an analogy.
Is it like poetry?
Yeah,
it rhymes. Well, I guess kind of going into some of the plot stuff that don't make sense, I say let's talk about it. I don't know why would we not talk about it.
Why not? Let's do it.
But also going into some of the home invasion stuff that you were mentioning that frustrated you earlier, Chewy. I think we could kind of discuss some of that stuff too, because I also felt frustrated at some of the stuff, especially things I think I've become better at not getting bogged down on trivial plot, quote unquote plot holes, because ultimately I do think that those aren't that important, and I said this last episode, unless they are distracting. And it's not just a plot hole, but just character motivations of, wait, why is this character doing this?
Right.
This doesn't make sense in the context of this scene or what we've known this character, and that's where I get more bogged down. But yeah, things like she just bolted herself to a coffee table. Is that coffee table bolted into the ground? Just move away. Also,
that coffee table is probably light enough to pick up with you. That too.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing. It's the logistics of, like I said, it's really hard for me, a slasher movie, to not just go, yeah, but that's a guy, and that's just some human being, and you're that also. And there's probably more of you than there are the one murderer. Now, in this case, they were equally matched. I feel like, okay, if we're gonna do this properly, I feel like the doppelganger dad and maybe the doppelganger daughter pose the biggest threat. But I feel like, if they got pretty bad vibes about the whole situation pretty early on in the scenario. If for one they couldn't get to the car, which if you have a car, you have the ultimate weapon for one thing. If they couldn't make it to the car, which was closer to the house than the family was, you should be able to just get the drop on them. You literally have a house full of things to fight with. And they're the same as you. Take out the dad. And then go one by one. There are literally scenes where they're just sitting next to each other, and anyone at any point in time can just lean over and make a move, and the situation's over. That stuff frustrates me,
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, if I knew the threat, I would have been because they had the scissors, and so you're like, okay, that's scary. But then they repeatedly show restraint in using him, so I'm like, wait, are they dangerous then? Right. I guess maybe that was the intent. Like, you're supposed to be not sure, and so being unsure is scary. But I would have been more scared if I knew that they were going to stab him.
There were smaller things that got resolved. Like, they called the police and they said, "Oh, it's going to be 15 minutes," and then like half an hour later, the police hadn't shown up. But then way later on, after the second act ended, they explained, "Oh, there's an epidemic happening on the boardwalk." Yeah. So I went, "Oh, okay." But at the time, I'm like, "Hey, yo, movie, you're doing the thing that movies do. You know, you're coming up with inconvenient excuses to why things are the way they are." But, you know, that was only in the moment something that bothered me. But I feel like there were a lot of little things throughout that entire sequence that, like, borderlined on the I'm engaged because I'm engaged and I want to see what happened, and between, like, I'm frustrated because everybody's making stupid decisions.
How come the son at the end was able to turn his doppelganger into a puppet and have him walk into the fire?
So I thought about that too. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And to me, it kind of goes back, and it kind of plays into the theme a little bit, is that they were the youngest, right? And so they had the closest bond. They had not been separated as much as the adults. So they had a stronger connection, and, you know, there weren't the extremes in that in their case. That's what I took from it anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of them being a tethered, is that they're mimicking and must in some fashion or another through black magic mimic their other tethered. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, what you were saying about some of the stuff that plot wise doesn't hold up now that, you know, based on what were some of the things that you were thinking about then?
Yeah, I mean, it's Matt, you raised some good concerns too. To me, it's more like, okay, they're trying to build out this world. You know, this weird underground tunnel world and they give us some throwaway lines about some experiment in a lab. I mean, if you start breaking that down, none of that is going to hold water.
Yeah, I kind of just have to go, okay, that's not important. Take it for what they say.
Exactly. And that's, I think that those are the kind of things in this film where you have to kind of do some hand waving.
You really do.
And just accept it.
Because, there's things that are, like, some of the nitpickier stuff, it's like, how do they reproduce? What's the chances that their doppelganger kids would have looked exactly like the... And again, I haven't done this very much, but we're going to compare to Get Out. You know, that movie establishes very early on that there's going to be a supernatural element to the movie. And I went, got it, movie. Suspending my disbelief in 3, 2, 1. There you go. And I never knew at what point in this movie... how much should I suspend my disbelief and where should I do it? You know what I mean? Because I wasn't sure if the movie was going to make sense of itself, you know, with this underground mole people laboratory plot.
Right. And it never really does. And I think, like I said, I think that's okay. It's just kind of like a black box. They give us a line, we believe it, we move on.
Right.
I also have a point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or a thing. So, like, the one lady, or, like, it seemed like they were upset that they had to eat rabbit meat all the time, but the only food they'd ever eaten was rabbit meat. So what do they got to be upset about when that's all the food?
Well, the little girl wasn't. She.
Well, one of the things that he does pretty well, if you look at the film, the mother Adelaide, she doesn't. She eats fruit. She won't eat meat, and she kind of scolds her son about his dietary habits as well. And if the way she's eating that strawberry is the way a rabbit would eat a strawberry. It's like little. Weird, interesting, nitpicky little things that are fun to actually like, oh, he actually did have a lot of care put into this film. And I think he intentionally, the stuff where we have to kind of black box it, I think that's intentional too. Like, he could have spent an extra half an hour trying to explain to us, okay, so there's these labs, right? And, you know, so it was this experiment, and they could have spent this whole thing, but do you need to? As long as, you know, narratively the point is made, I think you've done your job. I mean, for someone like me, it's hard for me to even say that because I love getting into the nitty gritty and the explanations. And
that's why I want to counter you, because you say as long as they do that, then they've done their job. I say yes to the point where they don't push me past the point where I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, and that's where it varies. And
sure, so okay, that's fair.
That's kind of where it got from me.
Yes, Vince, I was going to say, going back to what you made at the very beginning, is that you thought that they explained too much, right? And I agree. Like, if they just had these people rise up and they're doppelgangers and they don't offer an explanation, I think I would have liked it more.
It's like
just this notion is enough. Like, they don't like, but because they had like 2 lines explaining some weird science with souls, like, why did
Then
you
I have to go,
just-
hang on, tell me about the scientists, and tell me about
Yeah,
the
like
soul.
just like
tell me
don't
about
tell
this
us that at
thing.
all.
Tell me how
It's
they go to
like
the
an
bathroom.
episode of
Yeah.
Lost, and Chewie, you're not going to understand this, but
It's
when
fine.
they explain the smoke monster and how the whole island works,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, that sucks. Every single online person ever who came up with a theory came up with a better theory than this. And it's like, and this is
Right.
what you gave us. It's like, it's better when it's like, we get to speculate. It's better when these discussions are had, and anyone's, idea could theoretically be right.
And I think this film would have still worked on that base surface level, even without any explanation at all.
Yeah, because
we would have just
Yeah.
that's weird and crazy. Oh my gosh, these weird underground crazy mole puppet people. I'm scared. That's enough. I don't need a line describing how they were part of an
It
experiment.
legitimately
Right.
makes it less terrifying when you actually know.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't as
Yeah.
scared.
I can't be
After
scared when I'm
knowing.
confused. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is kind of what I'm getting at in terms of, I think less is more, right?
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
this might be
Yeah.
a situation where it needs to be less or it needs to be more. And I would
Mhm.
prefer less, I think, given the two options, given the two extremes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
I
if
agree
it's
too.
more, then I feel like it's almost getting into like science fiction.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're getting more.
Yeah.
Which I do like about his kind of, just two films. I do think there is a consistent, brand there. So I will say I really like it just because I feel like it is unique enough that I can't really place it anywhere. Like there's no other director or filmmaker that I feel kind of taps that slightly sci-fi / supernatural,
Mhm.
but dealing with obviously, current events and modern ideas and themes and a basic, pure,
Right.
thrilling plot.
Yeah.
Right. I think
Like-
the obvious connection or comparison is Twilight Zone, right?
Exactly.
Which he's going to be a part in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like there's always like a lot of the episodes had a more than a hint, I guess, of sci-fi. Oftentimes with some sort of interesting commentary on society. And,
Yeah.
you know,
And they obviously rarely, if ever, tried to offer any sort of explanation for
Right. Yeah.
whatever crazy thing was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also like to say, I think the cinematography was really good in the movie. And
Yeah.
like, there
Yeah.
was certainly like shots early on. Like, because I've been to like Santa Monica, or it's not
Santa
Santa
Cruz?
Monica, to Santa Cruz. And I've walked around like that beach and the pier and everything. And it's like, never thought that like a movie would be able to like put me like on edge about that
Yeah.
specific area. And like the fact that it was able to, it's like, hey, I've been there, but it's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be creeped out when I go there. It's like,
Don't
Yeah.
go into the House of
And-
Mirrors.
yeah.
And what's great is that he does it in the daylight too, right?
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
like, you never think that you'd get creeped out in the daylight walking on the beach.
I always
Right.
think that's a good, indicator of you're a good filmmaker. If you could make me creeped out in a crowded place in the middle of the day, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like It Follows, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that's a good one. I gotta
Um,
revisit that one. It's been a while.
Yeah.
A small side thought too, kind of going back into some stuff, just questions you had. So, why did you guys think So it implies that she had been going to that house at all her life. Why
Yes.
all of a sudden do you think? And I have an answer that I am thinking of, but I don't just care what you guys think. Why was she all of a sudden freaked out when they went there this year? This time, the film has to take place, I guess. So is that the explanation, or do you think there's
I think
a reason?
I think she might have been her tether, whatever that means. She might have sensed that the uprising was about to happen. Perhaps. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's what I was thinking. That was my explanation, but it was again something that I was like, well,
Well,
Yeah.
that's silly.
how could you not ask that question early, especially in the first side of the film, where it's like, what you just mentioned, you've been coming here your whole life. Why are you freaking out now? And my only explanation is just because, yeah, she knew something was happening, even if she didn't know.
Yeah, I did think about that, or maybe they don't make it a point to go to that boardwalk. Maybe they're just staying at the house in the lake. I'm not really sure. It was a little unclear. Is it for sure that they established that they have been going to that house multiple times for a long time?
Yeah, they
It
do.
is? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know then. Weird. That's weird.
Right? And it just
I thought there was a hidden gem somewhere that I was thinking about. I thought, because I had the same question, I thought I had found something. Like she had picked up on some clue, because he drops a couple clues. Like there's like that homeless guy looking guy,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and then he appears on the boardwalk. Remember that later?
Yeah.
But his hands are bloody because because he's basically the first one that gets a
Yeah.
kill. I think is what they're trying to say.
Yes.
I think there's something like that with. I thought that was the connection, but maybe not because I don't think she sees him. Oh no, yeah, because she sees the kid draw that painting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But no, but she was creeped out before that, wasn't she?
Yes.
She was creeped out before that, but
Yeah,
that
so
creeped
there's
out
some
more.
that.
Also, I
Yeah.
really like that painting, how the kid drew the back of his own head, or
Oh
his
yeah.
doppelganger's head, right? Like, I thought that those small touches, like, that to me was, like, because you see kids drawing pictures all the time in scary movies
Yeah.
of monsters and
Yeah.
stuff, but I think that one was like, oh, that... He's drawn, like, you don't see a kid draw themselves in their picture, or was he drawing himself? Maybe he was drawing his
Yeah.
doppelganger. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like
Yeah.
things like that where I thought were really well done. Well, Ryan, what was the thing? So you were saying that there's this conspiracy twist. What's
Yeah. So
what
okay.
is
So
that?
a little bit about that. I haven't read too much online, to be honest with you, but I did have a. We do our game night on Monday nights, and we actually, because this film was such a thing, we actually committed like the first hour to just talking about it. This is the only part so far that I'm repeating that, or the conversation that we had, but some of the group believe that the boy was also a tethered. I don't think that theory holds any credence personally, but there's some people in the group that thought that it had some merit. And so I don't know if any of you guys had thought about that, because it's almost entirely based on the look he gives Adelaide at the end of the film, and which is like not entirely based on that, but that's the reason for the
Theory.
investigation, is if that makes sense.
Well, that I implied as him acknowledging that she was maybe she was the doppelganger. I don't know.
Indeed, and that's what I took as well.
Well, what was some of
and then-
their arguments then?
That basically, like, why, like, I'm trying to remember them now, but basically that he, like, how would he have known? Like, how would he have any knowledge of their system of anything that, like, to even know who she was and know what was going on?
Well, I mean, I think it's set up pretty well throughout. Like, sorry, this is just a counter to that specifically, but I think they set up, and there's a couple beats with this where it's specifically showing the boy becoming more afraid of his mother because he thinks she's becoming more like the freaky one, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that's like he's aware of that. I think that's the payoff for that through line. So that's what, like, anyways, continue on. But just for a small art,
I wish I could remember a little more of the logistical reasons. But one of the other things actually was more interesting to me, and I think this one I'm going to be the minority on. But what do you guys think about Adelaide? Do you think she retained the memories her entire life, or at the end of the film, maybe not at the end of the film, but throughout the film, she
regained them?
Yes.
You're talking about the memories from before the swap?
Yes.
So when she was actually detained in the facility.
Correct. In other words,
does she remember?
Does she know she is a tethered?
I think she had those memories repressed until the events of this film kind of reawoken those memories. And
ooh, interesting.
And being around her doppelganger, which would have been the original one. I think they had that link, and I think visually the dance sequence was supposed to be like the metaphor for we're reconnected and we remember each other's stuff, and I think that's probably what unlocked the repressed memories. I'm not sure. That's just my interpretation.
Okay, Sean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hadn't thought about that specific, but I think that yes, she's had the memory. She's always known that she's a puppet person.
Ooh, okay. Vince, what do you think? Or sorry, go ahead.
So, one reason I kind of to help explain that, or kind of why I think that is. Oh shoot! I'm drawing a blank now. Go to Vince because I have a reason for why I think that.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to counter your reason before you go to Vince because
I do not think she did.
Because if she hadn't had her memories repressed, then it's the now you see me situation, and we have to counter every motivation that she has throughout the entire movie.
No, but that's why I'm saying. Whereas that she loved, like, it wasn't like she fake fell in love with that guy or fake had children. She still feel like it doesn't change any of her emotional connections or relationships, even if she was a monster and knew she was a monster.
Sure, yeah.
But anyways, what I remember now though is that she couldn't talk, right? And that wasn't that she was repressing or she was traumatized. It's because she was a puppet person and they didn't know how to talk. So it took her,
Yes.
she had to learn how to talk.
Right. Well,
And to me, like, right, that was,
And also,
to me, that's kind of an indicator that she knew she just was she just had to adapt to the new society.
And I think it's, well, Vince, I want to hear what you're kind of saying, but I think it actually lends a little more insight into the conversation of the themes of the film as well, because one might say, well, how does she know that Red is coming for her? How does she know there's even another Red out there other than from her strange nightmare? You know what I mean? Like some might say that no, she literally knows that Red is coming for her. One day she's coming for her to take her place back.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know, that's something, I find that fascinating.
I think maybe she subconsciously knows. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only way. Like,
I think it's either way you look at it. I think that's one of the more interesting aspects of the film, because I originally agreed with you, Matt, and I think I still kind of do. But after hearing other people's arguments, I was actually more convinced that actually it kind of makes more sense that she does know.
Well, I want to counter this. I really want to counter this because
I want to hear what you say.
If she's not repressed, this goes back to a conversation we had earlier. Why would she spend her whole life going to this thing when she knows that there's some other version of her that could potentially be planning any minute now to come to the surface and take her rightful place back? Why would she be at all confused about why she's getting the Ghiblies about being at this park? You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole first act and a lot of the second. Like,
well, but I think to me that lends credits to why she wants to avoid the beach so much, because she knows that there's a path to her old life or what she was as a kid.
But you would think that in that situation she wouldn't even open up the possibility. No, we're not going on vacation there. We can go on vacation. We can go to Disney World. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to that campground because of X number of reasons I just made up that aren't a crazy doppelganger story, but it doesn't matter because I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? Like,
well, she kind of did though, but she did. She's like, we're not going there. Like, she did kind of say
that. They drove to the
no
campground.
uncertain terms. Like, I do not want to go there. I am not.
She goes to the campground first before they have a conversation about whether they're going to go to the beach, which is the only attraction around there anyway. You know what I mean? I just feel like if she knew with 100% certainty that there was a doppelganger underneath that boardwalk, she would have tried a little bit harder to not go ever near it. I don't know.
I mean, I suppose, but I think you can make the argument even if she wasn't consciously aware, she still knew something. Like, she's still afraid of that place because she still knew something went down there.
Right.
That's also a good reason not, like, but...
Yeah, I can hear both sides.
I
think they're both really...
I feel like there's a similar explanation either way you look at it.
You're right. I think maybe splitting hairs, but it's just like, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel right like that.
I know what you mean.
The one thing, too... well, sorry. Going back to, like, does it ever specifically... Does she, as an adult, as we see her during the film, ever specify her memory of the boardwalk? Because that would also... You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I think it's all flashbacks.
How would she... It's all flashbacks.
I think it's all flashbacks.
So, right? So it's never known, and it's not like she has knowledge that she wouldn't have known.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing, I don't think, amiss there, but I was thinking about that kind of stuff too.
Well, boys, we got ourselves an unreliable narrator situation, don't we?
Was there something else you said?
There's some other, like, interesting points, like she mentions, let's go to Mexico. It's safe there or something like that, and it's like, well, how does she know that?
She's just seen Terminator 2 enough times.
No, and that's what I said too. It's like, well, that's the trope in a movie, right? It's just like, let's go. There's a threat where we are now. Mexico, for some reason, is safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you could just rely on that, or it could be to those who believe.
She
like,
knows
maybe,
specifically.
Exactly. So I don't know. I find it a very compelling argument. But then you could say, well, yeah, but she was a child when she left the underground. How did she know it was confined to only America?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting either way.
Hey, yeah, you start asking those questions, we start getting off the grid, and it's dangerous.
All right, guys, let's get back on the grid. I think it's important to understand that in both this movie and Now You See Me, our main character is handcuffed to something.
The more things that we compare, that we're finding more similarities.
Well, anyway, yeah, that's kind of where I lined mixed on the twist element of this movie, because you really, Yeah, you really gotta just like take it for its thematic face value and then just leave it alone. At least that's what I have to do. You know.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's kind of how I'm approaching the film as well. I think the more I tried to come up with an explanation for these things, the more I got upset and frustrated with the film. So I decided to stop.
Oh, that's good. That's a healthy decision, I think.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about the rabbits? Did you have like?
I don't get it.
One thing I will admit, I did read this. Someone asked him like, "Why rabbits?" And then his response was, "I just think rabbits are creepy."
That kind of makes sense. I mean, I was thinking this less on the thematic level, but just more like, well, rabbits are if you're gonna just try to hands off, have to feed a whole bunch of people with meat, rabbits procreate super fast and they're plentiful. It kind of makes some sort of weird sense.
It reminded me of The Prestige, both visually and thematically.
Oh, with all the
the rabbits.
Were they rabbits?
He was cloning rabbits and magic hats, top hats. It is David Bowie Tesla Lab.
Yeah.
Also, I've noted he always has some song that is very striking, especially when that opening credit hits.
Yeah, score was crazy.
Same with Get Out.
Yeah. Score was unsettling.
There was a lot of long shots.
Yeah,
shots that really took a long time for the camera to slowly pan out.
I love that last shot. The last shot of the whole film. I really, really like that.
Oh yeah.
Because I thought they were gonna thought it was just gonna fade into the countryside, right? That was and that's just it there. But then when they pan up and you look across the country and you see the line, I don't know, I really like the visual. Again, kind of echoing the symmetry where it's kind of dividing it. But the helicopters coming in, who knows what's gonna.
I mean, it sucks. It sucks for all the doppelgangers who have to stand in the middle of the desert. They're not gonna last very long.
Nah.
What about the ones that have to go underwater?
Well, I think they just went to the coast.
They just went
underwater.
Yeah,
it was just
there's not
across
that many
America.
of them. Yeah,
Well,
and it's
someone's gonna have to stand the Rio Grande. It's gonna suck for some.
I don't
people.
know how so many people armed only with scissors were able to kill their doppelgangers, considering one family had no trouble dispatching theirs.
Look,
not to mention we have guns.
Also, I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. Where did they get all the scissors? Where did they get all the red jumpsuits? Where did they get all the fingerless gloves? Who was in charge? Who was the supervisor for each underground station?
Some guys are
Again, logistics, movie breaks down.
Who had to figure out how to navigate the 99-cent store, or to get up to the surface to buy all this equipment and then organize underground. I want to know.
Well, the thing is, I don't think they're allowed. They can't get above ground because if they could, the Adelaide that went down would just go, "Oh wait, I can get back out. All right, cool."
What about Well, how did the first one get out then? She just went up a.
Well, that's another big question I have for logistics of the movie. How did it get down? We know the power went out that night, so maybe the escalator stopped working and she could walk up it. Because if you notice, the escalator only goes down. Which is of course metaphorical for the whole class thing. Right?
And as we know, if an escalator is going down, it's impossible to climb up.
Indeed.
Okay.
I think that is a metaphorical escalator, but
one of those.
Yeah, I hate those. They're so hard to get back up. You mentioned the music. Did you guys notice the song she's humming the whole film?
The whistling or whatever?
Yeah, she's whistling.
I couldn't pick it up because there was blood in their mouth a lot of the time.
That is very true. It's the Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, if you think about it, is like, oh man, that's good. They did good with that one. I like those kind of things. And then there's other little things you get. I don't know, little trinkets you notice in that throughout the film. She puts on the Thriller shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you guys? And then their suits are red, and they're wearing the one leather gloves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, I thought that was pretty nifty. What else? I'm trying to think of. Oh, all the tapes, all the VHS tapes.
I don't think I noticed that.
Like in the opening scene?
The opening scene. I was trying to remember some of the ones I spotted, but basically we were going to have to just go back and freeze it on that frame, and every VHS tape is going to be
Yeah, I did notice that because there was only one or two that I could read, and I remember them being actually significant, but I forgot what they were now.
Yeah,
how could I have forgot? But I remember thinking oh yeah, Well, there was one that was the Goonies. I think one was the Goonies, and I don't know if that just because it's about underground caves.
Yes,
that's all I was thinking.
Yeah, which is some of the threads I feel like were a little loose. No pun intended.
But again, I think more than anything, it was just all about the '80s. Like I think. Again, going back thematically, I think the seeds of this were planted in the 80s specifically. Like, right? He could have chosen another in the 90s. It could have happened, right? It could have easily been that. But I think specifically for it to work thematically and kind of be the statement of what he's trying to say, I think it's important that it took place in the 80s. And then obviously the visual metaphor, the hands across America with the underground tunnels and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, well... Any more final thoughts on Us? I think we analyzed it pretty well. We are good jobs.
We did
good job, guys.
Yeah, enjoyed it. I will probably watch it again to take in all the attention to detail that was crammed into here because as we talked about it, I realized there's a lot. Good, solid. And then, compared to horror as a genre in general, it's way better than most of what's floating out there. So
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I would say this is another win for Jordan Peele.
And I will say it's Tim Heidecker's best. I actually bought him as kind of a normal person.
Yeah, I liked him. I think
not a weird Tim and Eric character that somehow
he
made
was
it
still
into
a pretty
movie.
weird guy, though.
His family did feel very much like a family I could see having to interact with at something. Going, oh my gosh, these people. So I think they were well cast and they were well written. So yeah. All right. Well, I guess if there's nothing else, I'll take us home.
Take me home.
Country roads. Oh, we went for a different Take Me Home.
Man, you did.
All right. Okay. After the Credits, a Yum Chunks podcast can be found on several outlets, one of them being our original Yum Chunks YouTube channel. We're also on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify and Podient and Radio Public, as well as a few others. So if you have a favorite podcast outlet that you like to listen to, we're probably on it. If you want to contact the show, you can leave comments on any of those things that have comment sections. You can also email us at yumchunks@gmail.com with comments or questions or just a, hey, how you been? We'll read it on the air if we get some ever.
Actually, did we receive any emails?
Actually, did we check our email box?
I didn't. I could check it real fast. We won't read it. If we did get anything, we'll read it next episode. Cause
they already listened to this episode. Well, how do you know they're going to listen to the next one?
Well, let's see. It probably won't matter because I'm guessing we won't have any emails. While I'm checking it though, Vince, sing us a song. Tell us a joke, Vince.
Taco Bell has free delivery by Grubhub.
That's no joke. That's my real life, and I live it on a daily basis.
That's important.
How dare you?
I didn't say that was a joke.
You told me to tell a joke.
Stating facts.
Public service announcement.
People tune in to learn about random state alcohol laws and Taco Bell promotions.
See, we got some Google security alerts. We got
You'd be surprised how much random alcohol laws and Taco Bell come into play together.
I would be surprised if we're being honest, because I have no idea what to expect as far as that number is concerned. All right, well, no, we didn't get an email. So,
okay.
All right. Well, then there you go. Those are all the ways to listen to the show and contact us if you want. What's coming up next? What do we got next on the horizon?
Avengers.
Well, I think before that we got Shazam comes out fairly soon.
Shazam is in the 90s right now. Shazam.
What?
Shazam on Rotten Tomatoes has a 93 out of 77 reviews.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's not include Chris on that episode.
Chris isn't here. Talk about DC. Shazam sucks. We've all seen it. It sucks. We went to a special screening. Shazam sucks. This has been After the Credits. Have a good night.
Bye.
This has been
After the Credits.
a Yum Chunks podcast.